John Mattier accounted for 44 touchdowns at Washington State this past season. Does he seem to line up from a talent perspective based on what Oklahoma standards have been through the years?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's going to be a jump in the level of competition, obviously, going from the Pac-2 to the SEC. And I think there's, I wouldn't say skepticism, but especially given the debacle that was 2024 for Oklahoma offensively, I think there are some fans that are going to want to see it to believe it with Mattier. But no doubt, you look at a guy that led the FBS in total touchdowns last year with 44. He's bringing firepower to the table. And I think what's most crucial there is that he's pairing with his former offensive coordinator at Washington State, Ben Arbuckle. So he's been in this offensive system for the last 2 years. He understands it. He's not going to be learning anything new. And so that familiarity aspect, I think, might honestly make Mattier more prepared for the challenge at hand than anybody else in the locker room, because he is the one guy that doesn't have to learn anything new whatsoever. So, yeah, there's certainly a lot of belief that Mattier in particular is going to be able to help lift Oklahoma back to where they have been and where they need to be when you're talking about the scope of offense across the country. The Sooners are more than accustomed to having one of the top 10 units in college football. That's the expectation. That's been the norm over the last quarter century. And certainly you'd expect that the tandem of Arbuckle and Mattier can at least put them back in that conversation.
Of course, the last Washington State quarterback transfer adjusted pretty well to power conference football, albeit against the ACC and not the SEC. And of course, Cam Ward. Speaking of, you alluded to the subpar standard or the subpar performance and record this past season. So it's been 6-7, 2 of the last 3 years. Is Brent Venables still in good standing with the fan base, especially with the Texas comparison being right there thrown in everybody's faces?
Yeah, no doubt. And that's really what exacerbates it, Mark, is the fact that Oklahoma has fallen upon some hard times right as Texas is really hitting their stride and looks to be more of a force nationally than they've been in a decade and a half at least. And so fans are squirming. And I said this earlier in the week, it's 100% true. Nobody has 100% approval rate when your football team has gone 6-7, 2 of the last 3 seasons. So Brent Venables has taken flack. Every single one of his assistants on staff has taken flack. The athletic director has taken flack. Yeah, fans are unhappy, and rightfully so. This is not the standard at Oklahoma, and Venables knows that. He's very aware of that. He's said as much. But again, I think you go back to 2024 and you look at the hand that Oklahoma was dealt, some of the injury luck, the inability to roll out consistent starting 5 on the offensive line, the absence of pretty much every wide receiver that could have hoped to make an impact in 2024 for the Sooners. It was the deck was stacked against them. And it wasn't for lack of personnel. It wasn't for lack of talent. It was just for lack of availability. And what can you do about that if you're a coach? So that is by no means to absolve Venables or any of his assistants completely of blame. But I think those that can take a step back and look at the big picture come to understand that there were some very, very unenviable factors that played into what was a disappointing season for Oklahoma in 2024. And that doesn't all fall on Brent Venables' shoulders. No doubt, though, moving into 2025, it is a prove-it year, and it's a year where the fans, the entirety of Sooner Nation, they expect that Oklahoma is going to fix this, especially after they just spent big money for a new offensive coordinator, big money for a quarterback in the transfer portal, one of the absolute best players in the transfer portal. The excuses are drying up for Venables and his staff. And so it's either going to happen in 2025 and Oklahoma is going to get back to their winning ways, or there are going to be some real uncomfortable conversations surrounding this program come November, December.
Speaking of conversations, what has been the conversation there at KREF Sports on a daily basis? Of course, you can catch everyone Parker Thune's work Monday through Friday.
It's off-season radio, Mark. We're trying to get through the months of January and February, get to spring ball in March, and have some more football to talk about. Because recruiting will carry you, but I mean, take a look at the hoops program right now at Oklahoma. That's not in great shape either. So it is the epitome of off-season radio at the studios. We're just trying to get by.
I would guess you receive more calls about softball than just about any other football-based school in the country. Pretty
No
much.
doubt. You have the type of softball dynasty that Oklahoma has. Obviously, the winners of 4 straight national championships. That's a program that everybody's going to get behind. They sell it out every single time they're at home at Love's Field.
Parker, we appreciate you stopping by as always.
Yeah, not a problem, Mark.